of Jada Talks on Jada TV. I am your host, Samuel Locher, and today I am joined with Daniela de Castro Sucre. Thank you so much for joining us today, Daniela.
Thank you.
Yeah, let me just go into your bio real quick. Daniela de Castro Sucre is a Venezuelan artist, muralist, and public speaker based out of Pensacola, Florida. With a degree in graphic design and artistic training in Spanish realism, her work has seen an evolution from figurative artwork to conceptualism. Daniela's inspiration stems from her life experience in different cities and her introspective view of the world. She discovered a love for large-scale public art in 2017 while working on her undergraduate studies and has since continued to paint murals across the state of Florida. She gave a talk on the subject at the 2019 TEDx Pensacola titled The Power of Street Art. Daniela is currently working on an oil painting series exploring the color palettes of different states of mind.
Hi.
Welcome, Daniela. Thank you so much for joining us. I like to start these conversations off with kind of talking a little bit about each artist's background, right? So you're from Venezuela originally, correct? Right?
From Caracas.
From Caracas. And so how long did you live in Venezuela before you left? And what was your life like there?
Well, I lived there until I was 15. As I was turning 15, I moved to the U.S., to South Florida. And I had luckily, I had a great childhood. It's a very family-oriented and nature-oriented childhood, as I remember it. But then we had to move because of the dire situation in Venezuela to South Florida. And then I lived in Florida for 4 years, and then I moved to Spain. So
what year did you leave Venezuela?
2006.
2006. So that's when Chavez was still in power, correct?
Yeah, well, he had been in power since the very, very late 90s. Things had, started to decline. And
So you moved to South Florida originally. You finished up high school here, and then it was for college that you went to Spain?
Well, I actually did a year at UCF in Orlando. Yeah, and then I moved to Madrid. My father was living there, and I studied there for 4.5 years. I was actually studying pharmacy and biology. And then I met a guy who was from Pensacola, Florida. We ended up getting married and moving here. So now I'm based out of Pensacola.
That's awesome. So how did your art practice for you begin? When did you first begin practicing art? Was this a lifelong thing that you brought with you from childhood, or what really piqued your interest?
Well, I was always encouraged to participate in art. I think I was like that shy kid in the corner of the classroom who just doodled. And my parents placed me in art classes since I was 7, maybe. So it was always, the activity. And by the time that I moved to the U.S., I studied under this fantastic master artist who really just kind of solidified it as an interest, possibly a career choice. But it's always been a part of my life.
Yeah. And so when you first started school, you were studying graphic design initially?
No, I studied nursing.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and then I studied biology as I moved to Spain, and then I switched to pharmacy and actually studied pharmacy for 3 years. It took a while to switch to design. The truth is, I just love science. I thought I would be a nurse for the longest time, and that art would be like the hobby. And I think I was a little bit of the mentality artist, essential. So I think I was under the impression, like many kids are, that the arts are just such a risky career choice because you can't make money, being an artist. So I think that was part of the reason. But I love chemistry, I love biology, I love anatomy. So that was my path for a while.
Yeah. So when you were living in Madrid, you're studying pharmacy there as well?
Yes.
And then what brought you back to the United States?
my husband, and
oh, so you met in Madrid?
Yeah, we met in Madrid. We were there for a couple of years, and then we moved back to the U.S. And in Pensacola, I had a bit of a few months where I was just wondering, should I continue with science? Should I, kind of go back to the art world, which I was wanting to do at that time already. And I was very encouraged, like, hey, try out something new, go to fine arts or something. And I ended up studying graphic design. And it was a great choice, honestly.
Was Pensacola inspirational to you? Is it an artistic city? Is there something in it that brought it out of you a little more than your other places you had lived?
So I moved to Pensacola having never been here before.
Yeah.
And I was fresh from Madrid, which is just so arts oriented that when I got here, I wasn't really sure what I was going to find. But really, there's this amazing artist community here. There's just, top level artists, videographers, photographers, everything. And I think it took me a second to get involved with that community. But yeah, for sure. And not only that, but Pensacola is developing and growing. And so opportunities are rising along with the growth of the city. Yeah. So there's a great community here for arts, for sure.
Awesome. And so your first mural was in 2017. Could you tell a little bit about that?
Yeah, that mural was at a brewery here in Pensacola. And it was a challenge, honestly, because I had never done anything at a large scale. Technically, I did like maybe a couple of murals back in Madrid, but not even thinking about it as something that I could dedicate myself to. And yeah, it was a small mural. I think it was like 10 by 7. And like I created it by carving out stamps and stamping it to the wall. So it took me forever to complete. That created this, this hunger for more, for bigger. There's something fantastic when you go to a larger scale. It really breaks with just the limitations that you create for yourself.
Yeah.
And yes, from that moment, I was like, this is something that I need to keep doing. This is awesome. I love it.
And it was a mural of Andrew Jackson's wife, correct?
It was a mural, of Rachel Jackson. The story behind it is that she, along with President Jackson, came to Pensacola in the early 1800s, and she wrote a letter to a friend describing Pensacola as this perfect plain. This is this amazing city and the breeze, and it really is a gorgeous city over here. And so that phrase was the inspiration for the naming and the whole brand of this business.
That's so cool. I love Andrew Jackson. I mean, a lot of people find him a little controversial today because his views are problematic, to say the least.
He's not the best.
Yeah, but I find from like a historical perspective, he's just so fascinating. Crazy life, crazy man. So many amazing stories around him, and what a wild life. I love Andrew Jackson. My favorite president, for sure. Yeah, he's so much fun to from everything. Did you ever hear the story? This is total side note, but did you ever hear the story of his inauguration when he became president?
No.
He was kind of viewed as the first real working class president we ever had in the United States. And he was the first one that didn't really come from a family of means, didn't go to college or anything like that. So, and he was also, I believe, the first president that was elected after men who didn't own land gained the right to vote in the United States. And so when he was inaugurated, it was basically a riot, and not a negative riot, but everyone was partying in DC, and they literally destroyed the White House. The party was so wild. They had people pouring in from the streets, hanging off the ceiling and everything. It was kind of funny. We think politics are so crazy now, but Andrew Jackson, he was getting gunfights with his political opponents. He was crazy.
That's crazy. Yeah, I've been, slowly learning a little bit more about just him and Rachel. And I mostly did my research on her. And she was a very pious woman who really, really disagreed with drinking because that was just not ethical. And I made art of hops. So like, I hope this is not disrespectful. And she really doesn't look pleased at all. Yeah, but adding to the controversy, Andrew Jackson led the Trail of Tears and all of this, craziness. And that mural actually was painted over last year during the BLM movement. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah. It was.
It doesn't have anything to do with it.
Well, you could argue that it was, a sensitive topic during, a very, kind of eye-opening time where everything was being just shined the flashlight on. Yeah. And I do think, though, that is just kind of the nature of art and the murals, especially street art. This one was an interior one, but they get graffiti, they get covered up. And so there is a little bit of like, let it live the life. And then it got covered up. And it was, I think, probably the correct response at the time. Yeah. But that was my very first mural that I consider as part of my portfolio here in Pensacola.
That's cool. So tell us a little more about what was your inspiration for the mural at the Jada Gallery in Miami Beach?
Well, first of all, that mural is possibly my favorite because murals are very similar to design. Mm-hmm. It uses art techniques, of course, but in my portfolio of murals, you have to basically cater it to the brand, to the space. It's this huge study, which to me, it's a bit more likened to graphic design, which is great. I mean, that's also what I do. But with the Jada wall, with that hand, I was given complete free reign. I was basically told, hey, just here's your canvas. And that is rare to come by an opportunity like that. And I think like many artists, I have a thing about hands. I don't know an artist who hasn't sketched their non-dominant hand time and again. And it's part of it's part of like the schooling of art. You do anatomical sketches. So part of it was that. Part of it was connecting it to this line that artists share. And it looks like a sketch out of Conte or Sanguine. It's the red type of charcoal, which is a very traditional medium. So there's a bit of like a pullback of history and a connection there. And to me, because of Jada's objective this year of legitimizing optimism, my take on that is that optimism is in your hands. I don't think too many people, myself included, optimism isn't a natural state of mind, honestly. You see yourself as a realist, but it really like borders on pessimism. Yeah. And you have to choose and work to be an optimist every day.
I think optimism, happiness, more so than a disposition, it's a choice.
Mm-hmm. So as well. I think there's a safety in pessimism where if you prepare yourself for the worst, you'll be ready for it. It won't take you by surprise. You already like made plans for it. And under that perspective, optimism is risky because it's like a double,
vulnerability.
Yeah, you not only did something bad happen, but you were not prepared for it. But the truth is that with an optimistic mindset, you can live in the now. With pessimism, it just colors everything a certain color. You're not able to enjoy yourself in the present, which is really what we have. Yeah. And so I see optimism as a choice. But what I wasn't expecting, which is it kind of fit perfectly, is that the community members that showed up as I was finishing the mural, they said, this is very poignant for the time because we spent a year without physical touch. We can't hug each other. We can't shake each other's hand. And this is like such a reflection of what we all need, what we crave so hard. And I was like, wow, I mean, it's open to interpretation. And I think that's a wonderful one. And so the people who have been showing up and touching it, that's why they're touching the hand physically, like the fingers. Yeah. And so that ended up being a beautiful result. Very happy with it.
I can't wait to see it in person now that it's finished. I saw it when you were working on it, but I've not seen it in person now that it's finished. Yeah. I want to talk a little bit about how your artist statement on experience mapping expresses your recent personal examinations and intentions to communicate through color, emotions, and memory. And this goes back to more of your art.
The painting series, yes. Yeah, so I exhibited 2 of those paintings at the exhibit a couple of weeks ago. And, from moving so much, and this is just my own personality, from moving time and time again to different cities, experiencing different cultures, I think that you kind of grow your interior garden a little bit. And I've always been a little bit introspective, I think. And last year, the mural world, for the most part, came to a halt. All the festivals, all of the big people events, that just stopped because of the pandemic. And it sucked, but it was a good opportunity to look inward. And I've always had this, relationship with color. I remember from a very young age, like arguing with my sister, which numbers are which colors, or days of the week, or just random things. Because we've always associated it like so strongly with color, and it just is. It's not like a decision whether this is orange or whatever. It's just it's
synesthesia. You guys are both what's the word for it when you have
synesthesia? Yeah, I think that's the term that people that it describes it. But it's the same way with states of mind. And I think last year it gave the opportunity. It just gave me this silence to start painting for myself. And as I was painting it, you make connections in your brain, and you kind of get obsessed over like this combination. You go, why does this bother me so much? Or why is something a certain way for me personally? And it's all tied to color. And so I'm just beginning the series. But it's a map, what I'm painting. It's a map to experience, and it is very conceptual. So a brand new thing that I'm doing. Let's see how it goes.
It sounds like it was a really, you're calling it an introspective thing, but it almost sounds like to me, like from the time in 2017 where you were commissioned to do your first mural, that it sounds like you were pretty wrapped up in the mural world until it came to a halt, like you said, with the pandemic. And so it was really, the pandemic was a pump on the brakes for a lot of us, but I like how it's kind of, it's transitioned you into this more personal art practice, because murals, like you've mentioned before, they're more of a communal thing. Like the whole community is involved with it. I would love that. That kind of segues into my next question. I just want to ask you a little bit about your TED Talk, where you're talking about the importance of street art, and you were telling some stories from different murals you were painting. And what was that experience like, doing a TED Talk? Not many people get to do that.
That was crazy. I'm not a natural public speaker. I practiced for months, literally, to try and not just ramble, which is what I would do without any kind of practice, and to try and create a cohesive storyline in 14 minutes or, maximum 18 minutes. That was a really good opportunity. That happened right before I graduated from my design degree. And so it took a lot of prep, and it took a lot of research. Obviously, you can't get up on a stage and just talk nonsense. You need to back it up with proper examples. But I do believe in that talk and in that point of view with street art. I think it has crazy power to revitalize, to beautify, to give a facelift to all kinds of communities. It improves walkability, and there's countless positive things that are tied to street art, and you see examples of that everywhere in the world. It's such an old art too. Murals are so trendy right now, they're like the thing, but really you find examples hundreds of years back.
The town in Corsica you mentioned in the TED Talk, I was not aware of that story, and I looked it up, the one that's now a UNESCO World Heritage Site.
That is in
Corsica.
No, it's in oh my goodness, of course I'm blanking right now with the name of the, oh man, it's not Corsica, but it's similar. It will come back to me.
Sardinia? Is it Sardinia?
No, Sardinia in Spain. Oh my goodness, I can't believe this.
What is it? Now I want to know. Oh, I hate it. What do you get?
Well, in any case, when it comes to me, I will share it. But that's a crazy story. That's a story that the murder per capita was just out of the norm because of vendetta murders. And so it was known as this capital of murder. And in the 60s, there was like one artist, he did a mural on a wall. And it's very incredible because the artwork is very cubist, it's very, very, and it's very political. And it just created this wave of street art. And, eyes started to move towards the city. And it is nowadays a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And it all started because of street art, because people will go out at night and just paint and protest through painting. And it's a wild story. It's in Sardinia.
Yeah.
It's in Sardinia. I'm remembering now. But I forget the name of the actual city, but I know it's in Sardinia in Italy. So that narrows it down a little bit. I should remember. Sorry about that.
Did it ever actually have an effect on the murder rate? I wonder, though. Like, did it?
I think it did. Well, yeah, because when it becomes a World Heritage Site and you get a lot of tourism, you get, I think, more eyes, more policemen, more of everything, more resources. That's a crazy story. It's like the story in Venezuela that I also included there. It's amazing what putting paint on a wall as a community can do for that community.
Well, and I love the two sides of it in Venezuela that you discussed. On one side, you have the very, like, politically activated, like, when they graffitied the billboard, Tengo Hambre, like, and then on the other side, you're talking about the organization that would go into the distressed communities and say, oh, we're going to brighten it up, and we're going to paint a mural here, and we're going to get the kids involved and build through it. So it's really interesting the power that street art can have, like you were discussing.
Mm-hmm. I think it creates points of connection and points of conversation, and one way or another, those two, like, very extreme different cases of, crazy political, just angry, desperate graffiti versus let's grab the kids in our community and let's clean it up and let's paint a wall together. They're both transparent, which was the main message of the TED Talk, is just a transparency of street art. It is a reflection of what's going on in that place, Yeah. And those both are very clear reflections of just the struggle that we've been having for 2 decades now versus the hope that things are going to get better,
Definitely.
Yeah.
So with that being said, what are your plans for the rest of 2021? What can we look forward to from Daniela?
Oh, I'm going to work towards my experience mapping series. I have some plans for it because I think it's difficult as an artist that you're beginning or halfway through a series and you're already thinking of the next one. And so I think I need to slow down and concentrate and finish the series. Because I see it as not only an exhibition, but an installation perhaps. So that will be one of my main focus, areas of focus this year, next year. I can't believe it's March.
Yeah. It's already March.
It's already March, yeah. And, mid to late last year, I did start a branding company here in Pensacola, and so I'm also focused on that. And of course, murals. Murals are so much fun. So I'm just constantly looking for opportunities there. And I may have a couple coming up that will be nice locally here in Pensacola.
Awesome. So where can everyone find you? Your website, social media, or they can find you to keep up with Daniela and see what you're coming up with next?
Yeah, I'm working on the website, so that should be coming up soon, I hope. Yes, like many people, it's under construction. But right now, I just post everything on Instagram, and it's Daniela with 1 L Paints. So at Daniela Paints, and that's usually one of the easiest ways to find me as well. You just send a message, and I'll answer. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, everyone, for watching. It was great speaking with you, Daniela. You have a nice day.
Nice to see you. Yeah, so nice. Thank you, Sam.
Bye, everyone.